Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Why in the Mountains podcast with me, your host, Stephen Farley. This is part 2 of our chat with Jen Copeland. If you haven't listened to part 1, I suggest you do that first. We start this episode on Summit Day, where Jen describes in detail what it is like to make the final push towards the summit, the difficulties and the hardship that precede the highs of reaching the top, and in the case of Jen's expedition, the tragedy and loss that is never far away from those who venture into the death zone on the highest mountains on the planet. So describe how Summit Day started for you.
Yeah, Summit Day, well, I'll kind of go back to Camp 3 if that's all right.
Sure.
Because at Camp 3, we got in there about 6 p.m. and we were leaving about 1 p.m. So it literally is just a rest stop. It's not, any major time spent there at all. And I just made a dehydrated meal. I was kind of forcing spoonfuls in, and I got quite sick after it. But didn't really think too much of it. It was a little bit of altitude sickness, would be fine. And then when we were leaving at 1 o'clock in the morning, I was still trying to stay quite hydrated, particularly when you're going on to oxygen. Really, really important to stay hydrated. And again, I took a sip of water and I just vomited everywhere. And I was like, oh no, this isn't good. But we would have got I had the choice of a bottle of Coke or a bottle of Sprite, and that was kind of your emergency liquid gold. Get you only over any hump. So the Coca-Cola was kill you or cure you. So I took some Coke, but then the pressure of me vomiting made me have diarrhea. So it wasn't a good start for me leaving Camp 3. And the Lhotse base, I remember being into it and feeling like we would have been climbing for, I'm sure we were about 7 hours in. And then saying to Dan, do I should, but or how much longer? And he was like, well, probably another 7 hours. I was just like, I think we were only moving for about 2. But in my head, obviously, because I was so dehydrated even then, and look, I ate really, really well at base camp, so I wasn't concerned from an energy point of view, and obviously women tend to have much more body fat and endurance skill like that. So yeah, I wasn't concerned. My main concern was that I was quite dehydrated, and it was tough. I found Camp 3 to Camp 4 really, really tough. So even when you make it to Lhotse Camp 4, then you're looking up towards the Geneva Spur, and again, that's nearly like another 3 hours. Like you can see the South Col, but it's never getting any closer. So we get into the South Col, and literally, you're just taking off your boots and kind of have your sleeping bag thrown over you. You have your down bag or your down seat on, and again, it's just resting. I don't think anybody's sleeping there. Well, except I had a girl, Sarah, from South Africa. She was on our team as well. And she had a bottle of Sprite in her bag. And like that, I don't know, like any Irish mammy, go, all you need is a bit of flat 7-Up and that'll cure you. So I didn't want to take it without asking. So I had to wait till she woke up. And I begged her, I said, you can have anything, like literally a capful and mouthful of a Sprite. And she told me it was water. So I was absolutely devastated. Yeah, so we pretty much got ready probably by 6:45, and realistically it probably took an hour for everyone. Sarah had lost fingers previously on Everest, so she would have struggled. She had prosthetics on her fingers. So by the time everyone got ready, it was probably about 8 p.m. before we were on the move. Up. And again, it's just like you can see the South Summit and you're kind of going, yeah, it's just there. But it just never gets any closer. And I found it tough, obviously. And I did say to myself, it was a bit like Denali. Like I remember lying in the tent in Denali, and we'd worked with a sports psychologist before we went to Denali. And it was kind of just that positive self-talk, what's kind of important now? What can you do? And I never put myself under pressure. Like, yes, I knew I had the capability to summit if everything went well. But it wasn't the be end and end all. Do you know what I mean? We had such an amazing journey, getting to know Shay. And I never believed realistically that this was ever going to come to fruition. And thankfully, lots of people did believe in us to make it happen. Absolutely, I can put a lot of hard work into it, but it takes huge support from, there's definitely self-doubt at times, like when it's hard and you can't get sponsorship and you're unsure if this will ever get going. But when you're there, and that just gives you so much energy in those moments that, everyone else believes in you. So yeah, just go and put one foot in front of the other and turn back when the time's right. We got up to the balcony then, which is where about 8,300 meters. We were changing our oxygen tanks, and I attempted a sip of water, and it stayed in. And I swear to God, I was like a new woman. So, and in my mind, it literally every step up was like a piece of a jigsaw for me. It was really bizarre. Just everything that mouthful of water just gave me completely renewed energy to move on up. And then when you hit the Hillary step, then you hit the summit ridge, and I knew when we hit the summit ridge, this is it, we're going to make it. Even though you said an hour and a half, 2 hours of summit.
Is it still?
Yeah. And it's so narrow anyway. So even like that, we didn't meet too many people coming back towards us in that, but it's a narrow ridge of how you're moving up and down it. And again, I was blown away. I happened to be the first one out of our team to hit summit, and there was 4 other people on it. So yeah, it was out of this world, like literally out of this world. And it's really surreal. It's like you're just pinching yourself the whole time. Like, as I said, I read so many adventure books, like the Icefall, the Western Cool, Camp 2, Camp 3, like the Lotsie Face, everything, Camp 4. It's just, you're living it, you're there, this is it. And obviously the sun coming up gives you renewed energy as well, so that difference. And well, I've been fortunate enough to be in other mountains where you do see sunrise. You literally, from that height, you're literally seeing the curve of the earth for absolutely miles. It's, I don't know, it reminds me of one of those, I think it's Universal Pictures that have that one for their intro or their movies with glow above it. So it's pretty much like that.
How was the weather on summit day?
Yeah, summit day was pretty good. We did have a fair bit of wind, which was giving us spindrift, which literally felt like you were being sandblasted. So once we hit out onto the balcony, we're more exposed in that. Yeah, so that was tough going. I had 2 pairs of glasses and 2 pairs of goggles, and they were freezing up all the time between the oxygen mask. Just any sort of a leak would give moisture into it, and they would freeze over. So there was definitely a bit of everyone swapping glasses and goggles as yours working. So, but nothing that would, we never felt, oh, we shouldn't be here or anything like that. As I say, it was windy, but it wasn't wild. It was just that spin drift of as I say, you kind of felt like you were being sandblasted.
Did you stay long on the summit? Did you get a chance to make contact with home?
No, I didn't make contact with home, I guess. And even taking the camera on the way up, Bob, my husband, she just said, look, take it in with your eyes. You know what I mean? You can take a glove off and it can blow off down the mountain, and then you're coming home with no hand or no fingers. Not that he would have stopped me taking a photograph, but I kind of had that in the very much the back of my mind, and that we literally are only halfway there. So still very conscious of that. Yes, we stayed, I'd say roughly about 20 minutes up there by the time we got team photographs and everything else like that. And everyone just soaked it in. And then it was time to descend. Yeah.
And when you started to descend then, so how was everything going?
Yeah, it had been going, as I said, I obviously had my own trials and tribulations, but I'd kind of got that renewed sense of energy. And O'Shea, upon hitting the summit, had said he was exhausted, but ask any climber who was exhausted when they hit the summit of Mount Everest. So I wasn't too concerned about Shea and the summit at all. And that's when the decision was made, okay, look, we have time to stay in Camp 4 and we'll move out in the morning rather than being under pressure. Shea descends really, really quickly, and he always has on any mountain. He's very quick on his feet. And I was very happy that he was with the lead seater. He was in good hands on this descent. So they made their way on down. I was behind, and then Noel had always said to us he would sweep the mountain. He says the biggest thing, people sit down or you might get a rational hemorrhage. So he'll sweep. So Sarah would have been behind me then. But actually, when I happened on camp at the balcony again, which is about 8,300 meters, to change your oxygen bottles again, Shea was there, which I was really pleasantly surprised about, kind of going, oh, he hasn't got too far ahead. So we changed our oxygen bottles. He definitely had a little bit of slurred speech, like that I would have suffered with altitude sickness on Mont Blanc. And yeah, slurred speech in the river there, probably one of the first things to go. And again, not too concerned. I had said, look, to his temper when I gave him Dex, I had dexamethasone on me, and I had a Dimax as well, and he was like, no, he's all good. So he took the Dimox, he didn't take the dexamethasone. And they went to move on, and I actually went to move on with Shay and his Sherpa, because my Sherpa was staying behind to teach or to change over the oxygen tanks. And I just said, it would be nice just to move on together. But they just moved too quick. And I said, I got a trip, break an ankle, I'm stuck here, or I'll trip, slide down and knock somebody else off their feet. So I ended up sitting down not too far, probably less than 100 or 150 metres below the balcony, waiting for my own Sherpa to catch up, saying, look, Shane just needs to get down, we'll be grand. So then we neared Camp 4 with my own Sherpa. It's like a massive football field, basically. So you get to a point where it's fixed rope, and then once you kind of hit that football field, there's a call. There's no ropes, so you're kind of walking on up to your tent. And because Shay was tired, I didn't think at all to go into his tent, because we'd done an amazing thing, we'd summited, but we weren't off the mountain yet, so like we were kind of still in that zone of and I just wanted to let him rest. So I went back to my tent, but literally as I had descended, Dandy, my Sherpa, was kind of hoofing me along, pushing me along, and I was like, stand down, you don't need to push me, like I can see going forward, it's all good. But I wasn't aware at that time Temba, his brother, was passing back up by us. They had spoken in Nepalese to each other, and I just totally assumed that Temba was going up to help one of the international teams. It wasn't until I got back into my tent, we would have used a Garmin InReach satellite, which knows your location and you can text from it as well. It had died just because the weather was so cold. It switched off, so I was trying to power that back up just to let family know everything was good, and I had made it back to Camp 4. And then I was literally just resting there, waiting for Sarah to come in, and knowing that Noel was off the mountain then. And it was probably about 2 hours later, Noel then came in and said, Shay's missing. And I was going, okay, Granny's missing, let's find him. My Garmin was up and running. I got in touch with Suzanne and Emma from our own team from home. Obviously, while they weren't there with us, they had trained up to that point with us, and had said, oh, has Shay been in touch? And they came back on, God, great to hear from you. He was asking after you. Glad to hear you're okay. So I was like, oh, great. You know what I mean? He's been in communication. He's good, because he had an InReach himself. And he would have needed a fair bit of dexterity. He had one of the small ones, so he had to use his phone to text off it. So he needed mental capacity to do that, and he needed good dexterity. So from an altitude point of view of sickness, I believe he was in pretty good stead, being honest. And then I pressed the emergency button on the side, and I had said, trying to locate. I had Shay's. They work off email numbers. They're probably a bit dated now, but Shay and I never had a reason to contact each other in the mountain. We had always been together. So again, you always learn something. So I didn't have a direct contact with Shay to actually message him directly. So I'd messaged them saying, can you send me the last known coordinates, because obviously it does a map share with it. That's where he would have sent his last text, and put that in on mine, and myself and Noah went out. Now at this point the weather had really picked up and the storm was coming in, and obviously wandering around Camp 4 unroped wasn't ideal, but I guess we went to a point of where, okay, it's not safe for us to be out here unroped. There is no ropes up there to rope up. The fixed rope is in, that's it. It's not like there's a spare rope lying around. Flashed our head torches, called out, and nothing. And then tried to get back to our tent. And even that, the melee of kind of tent, the weather and the storm that was in, I actually couldn't find my tent. And I distinctly remember reading other adventure books where people died outside the tent because you're literally a foot from its door but you can't see it. And it had that feel about it. Anyway, I did eventually find the tent. I got into it, and contacted Shay's wife Pam, and talk about social media. Everybody knew, they probably knew quicker than I did, even though I was on the mountain. So the local team, Seven Summits, had put out a post saying that Shay had been missing on the mountain. The news all picked up on it here. His mum and sister were in Tesco's and Bray, heard it over the radio. Pam was scrolling, talking to her sister on the phone, and it popped up that Shay was missing. So, as I said, they actually probably were, even though I was in the circumstance and in that situation, they probably were aware sooner than I was that he was missing.
I can remember, sorry to interrupt you, I can remember at the time, like I said earlier, a few of us were on our team WhatsApp just saying, oh, they've got to the top and this and that, and following it, and like the news was coming really quick that something had gone wrong, and you almost regretted sending the message in, oh, it's great they got to the top, because almost immediately there was news of the problem. So I get what you're saying there, that it was picked up pretty quick back here that there was problems. So you're obviously searching around, then you're getting back to the tent. That's nighttime now when you're back to the tent, is it?
Yeah, it was anywhere between 8 and midnight that we'd been out.
That's a long day that you've been out already.
Yeah. And then, and I just lying awake going, okay, Beckwether survived. He'll be grand. Like Shay is a really ingenuitive person, not sure what happened, and still couldn't really get out what actually happened. I don't have anyone that said they witnessed anything. I just got told he went to the bathroom, and Shay being Shay, he probably didn't pee beside the tent. Obviously there's no toilets in Camp 4 or latrines, so he most possibly could have gone to the edge or to the side. And Shay would have been, everyone always laughed, Shay took all the scenic photographs, I took all the people, so between the two of us we always got a good set of photographs. So I've no doubt he was taking photographs. He had texted his wife Pam, so she was aware that he was back in Camp 4.
So he had made it back to Camp 4, because some of the stuff you read, it's that it happened at the balcony and so on.
Yeah.
No, he had made it back to
Camp 4, yeah. And it was a really lengthy text, so as I said, he was texting from his phone, so even finger dexterity, everything like that about it was massive. So the only thing I can have in my head, and I don't know, I didn't witness anything, is if he took off his backpack with his oxygen tank in it, even if it was running low, it's still a fair bit of weight in that, and you have your oxygen mask attached to you, and if it slipped and pulled him off his feet, I don't know. He was never recovered.
So you guys are, you're still in the death zone at that camp, so you need to get down.
Or oxygen is going out during the night.
Did you stay long? I know you were looking, then you go back to your tent. What happened then? Did you stay for the night and then go descend, or was there more searching the next morning, or what happened?
No, and like that, I guess, Garmin and Reach were like, oh yeah, we'll send a team up, but anyone who knows the death zone or anyone who knows Everest and acclimatisation, it's not about sending people up. Nobody's acclimatised. A fresh team aren't acclimatised to come up, and so it's only whoever's there to do anything about it. There's no ropes. It's not like there's a rope there that you can abseil down. So it wasn't over the Lotsie Face. So when you're on the Lotsie Face, you're on a fixed rope side, and then you come across the Geneva Spur, and then from the South Col down, it's just open grasses and a sheer ice wall down. There's nothing. Bar if you did slip and fall, bar him climbing back up himself, or somebody physically seeing him to attempt to know where he is to recover him, then other than that, so I was texting home literally just saying, I'm okay, Shay's missing, we've been out, and again, hopefully in the morning something will resume. So again, will somebody come up with a fixed rope, but again, knowing that would take time, but for that to happen, for them, they literally had to drag me out of the tent to leave Camp 4. I wasn't going anywhere, I wasn't leaving him behind, on it without knowing.
And was there, did other people then attempt to search the next day? Was there more searching?
It wasn't even the next day, so that weather had come in. So we got off that following morning, and then the weather from the South Col up to Summit was back to jet stream wind. So the next weather window, which is when that massive group went up, was the 22nd, 23rd, and that's when they attempted realistically a recovery at that stage. Noel was very good and managed to get an Italian pilot who was able to fly over 7,000 metres, hugely dangerous, absolutely. The air is so thin, and they're taking their own lives complete. risk. And then they sent a team from Camp 4 down on a rope. So they probably, visual-wise, they would have visually had an eye on everything, but actually covering ground, they probably would have missed about 200 metres from the ropes coming down to actually where the helicopter could fly up to. They did manage to locate his crampon and goggles, which would indicate that he had gone off that side. And his backpack actually was located on her descent out, and they'd spotted it over. No oxygen tank in it now or anything like that, so they just shoot it off down the road, you know.
I'm sorry to bring you through it again. Like I'm so privileged that you're even talking to me about it. Thank you very much. I can remember following it. We were following it so closely, and the GoFundMe and all of that. And then the news came that the rescue was called off and there was going to be a recovery. Were you down in base camp at that stage?
Yeah, we come back down to base camp, and obviously then there was that whole logistics and waiting for that weather window, and Noel was very on point, and then trying to keep in contact with the family, and obviously the local logistics team about who was going back up again. And I know Shay, and I know obviously Shay's family wouldn't want to have put anyone else at risk, but there is a risk of people going up, particularly for a recovery of a body. But I can understand the families wanting to do so. And he had a young daughter, Emma, and his wife Pam was pregnant for their second child. So I think very much as in she wanted to ensure from their perspective that, you know, no stone was left unturned to find him and give him that opportunity. And I don't think anyone can judge that. Like, lots of people love to judge and cast aspersions on it, but I don't think unless you're in that situation you can make a call on it. So yeah, that was always the right call for them. Unfortunately he wasn't found, but I know the fact that they tried has given them some peace. I know the fact that he's summited and fulfilled his dream. They've been incredibly kind to me and, you know, supported me in all my expeditions I've done since. And yeah, Shay was like a brother to me. I don't have any brothers. I have 3 sisters. I say older, he was actually younger than me. But yeah, we never really had to say anything to each other. It was kind of like a knowing look, are you all right? And a nod back. It wasn't, he never, like, words were never often exchanged in moments when he knew things were tough. We could read each other quite well. Yeah, it was, but the only way I can describe it is like there's been a car accident and you stepped out and you just don't look back. And that's really,
yeah, observing it from afar, he came across that way, even to people who didn't know him, like myself. Did you leave shortly after that? I mean, I can't even imagine. I don't even want to ask what that journey home was like, but it's the next thing in my mind to just wonder what that was like trying to get home.
Yeah, it was tough because obviously we were back at base camp, and then there was the logistics of trying to do a search and rescue. My dad, Bob, stayed at home with the 4 kids because obviously there was that element of, God, Shay's missing, and now he's, you know, it's a recovery. So for Bob and family to understand that and deal with that, my dad kindly hopped on a flight and came over and naively said he'd fly up to base camp to me. I was like, your head will explode with altitude sickness. So he waited for me in Kathmandu, but even just knowing, he just didn't want me to have that journey alone home, home alone even. And yeah, so I waited until Noah was heading back up for that recovery, and then I headed on back down to base camp.
It sounds like Noel was an excellent leader, even when things went south on you. Unfortunately, of course, Noel lost his life on Annapurna. Have any thoughts on the man? Just like, again, I'd love to be able to ask him questions and interview him, but obviously I can't. So, what kind of man was Noel, like around camp or on the hill?
Yeah, Noel's a no bullshit kind of guy. He just loves it and soaks it in, but with no bravado. He doesn't tell anyone he's doing anything. He just does it. And if people find out, great, but he doesn't. He does things because he wants to do it, not because he wants to be seen to be doing them. He loved adventure, and he was just so encouraging. He, again, a bit like that kind of what I was saying, was in, we could put people on a pedestal as if, oh, they're superhuman or they're amazing, but realistically, we're all amazing. And and he, he didn't oversell it like a really hard. He knew the effort and work we put in. He believed in us, and he was just very relaxed. Like we would have had a glass of wine with dinner most nights or a beer, so it was very chilled. Nothing mad, but enough to keep the atmosphere buoyant and fun. And when things needed to get serious, we got the head down. So amazing to be with somebody in the Mad Mountain who had such experience on it. And absolutely, like what I said, Shay and I were very much we wanted to be able to say we're looking after ourselves on that mountain. And obviously we did have Sherpa support. And from a logistic point of view and moving everything, they are king within that. And going into those heights would definitely be a new element with that. But Noel, there was a presence about him without him building that up. As I said, he turned off more mountains than he summited, and he told those stories. So we very much felt in good hands. Yeah.
Have you been back to the mountains since? Have you been back to the Himalayas since?
Yeah. I do some. I'm a freelance mountain leader, so yeah, I've worked for Earth's Out and been fortunate enough to. I think I've been back 4 times since. Into base camp. It was the first time going back, everything about it, the flight up to Lukla, the first tea house we went into, I could see Shay absolutely everywhere, like literally. I think I cried most nights to sleep. And I guess that's cathartic in its own way. Yeah, it was really tough. But then you see the beauty all around and why you went there in the first place. Going up to Climbers Memorial, they put a plaque out previously. Suzanne Sturger, who had been part of our team, had been out in the October on an Everest Base Camp trek, and her Sherpa team had put a plaque on her rock with prayer flags. So just to see that there, and it was photographs of Shay's kids, and little mementos. So yeah, it was tough.
I was going to say a lovely place. That's the wrong way to describe it, but I went to base camp in Island Peak, and I spent so long at that memorial. Just even like you talk about the books of adventure, just going around looking at the names, Scott Fisher and Rob Hall and so on, and it's just, it's a lovely way to remember people. And Shay has a memorial there, does he?
And what a view!
If you get a view, I don't get a view. The clouds were right down.
You'll have to go back.
Almost definitely. If I can get my hip right, I'll go back. Just looking back on it all now, Jen, and obviously it was an amazing experience, a tragic experience for you, but just looking at Everest and the way it is and the way it was for you in 2019, wasn't it? And there's so much criticism leveled at it. You mentioned NIMS and the photo. What's your view of that? Do you think Everest has, well, I'll not put words in your mouth, what do you think of Everest and the way it is?
Yeah, look, it's an industry, there's no doubt about it. I'm actually leading Everest Inc. at the moment, which has gone back to that starting off of commercialisation. So I'm not finished yet, so thank you at the end. But it does go up to present day pretty much in it. But yeah, from my own experience, the crowds, something that did terrify me was that crowd and that conga line or getting stuck out with it. But like, it's a media circus. So when things happen, it's clickbait. They love it. They love dramatisation of it, or unfortunately, if there's been a trauma or death, then that's what hits the news. I think a lot of it comes down to weather windows. So I was accused when we were there was two weather windows to summit. We were fortunate enough to be in the first weather window. If Carlsberg did summits, we had it like quite literally up to that point. Like, you don't aim to be out there in bad weather, nobody does. And obviously mountain forecasts can change. And but I like other years, I think 2017, 2018, I think they had 11 and 12 days straight. So you don't hear that same drama. I think there's an awful lot of armchair criticisms. Lots of people always say, sure, it's really easy to fix all the way to the top. And I can't, like, what's one person's easy is somebody else's really hard. So, go and do it and tell me it's really easy. Yeah, I don't know. I feel very privileged to have stood on top of the world. It takes me usually a couple of years to actually acknowledge that that's what happened. Like, I still look at awe of anyone who has stood up there, and I don't think the same of myself, strangely. But yeah, it's yeah, I think predominantly it comes down to whether windows in that whether there's crowds on it or not, being honest. And obviously it's the Nepalese government make an awful lot of money and they don't put the money back into it. So
last question. I hope there's people listening to these podcasts that are, I don't know, maybe in the grey zone of I want to do it but I don't know if I can do it. What would you say to those people?
Yeah, well, obviously I come from a background of mountaineering, and like lots of people say you have to, or you should, or purists would say. So I do think you should be skilled, have enough skill set to look after yourself on the mountain, whether that's here in Ireland in the mountains or whether you're on an 8,000 metre peak in the Himalaya. Have the skill set, be able to make the decisions for yourself, and be confident in that. And yeah, leave no stone unturned going out there. And if you have a doubt at all, you shouldn't be there.
Wise words from a wise woman. It was an absolute privilege to get the chance to speak with Jen about her and Shea's experience, meeting in 53 degrees north, and the adventure of a lifetime that they both went on, achieving a childhood dream, but ultimately ending in tragedy for Shea on the South Col. I can't speak for anyone else, but for myself I watched Jen and Shea as they prepared, trained and left for Everest full of hope and excitement, unknowingly, or maybe they did know, that they carried with them the support of so many people like myself back in Ireland, who they didn't know, who would love to get the chance to be with them on that adventure, and followed every turn on their climb, always hoping and praying that they would get to the top, because if they did, it would preserve that faint glimmer of hope that one day, that for me sums up Shea, Jen, Noel and so many others from this island. Ordinary people doing the extraordinary and showing the rest of us that if you put your mind to it, you can do it too. Shea didn't come home, and for his family, Jen and all who knew him, that is an immense burden to carry. I hope that these 2 episodes with Jen help in some way to ensure that people know what these 2 courageous Irish mountaineers and their team achieved on Everest, and that hopefully their story is a memory that doesn't fade over time, and that it can inspire others from these islands to follow their dreams. Thanks for listening. There are a few more episodes of this series I hope to get out to you soon. In the meantime, stay safe and stay cool.